Michelle Graves, your host on The Power of Money, and I'm honored to have you as a part of my world in this coming segment. With The Power of Money, as you know, we are interested in three things. First, that you get the necessary education so that you and your family will have the information to do well in these difficult times. The second thing I'm interested in is for you to be empowered to prosper. I want only the best for you, but you can't get that if you don't have the education and then the drive to make it happen. And the final thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is that you be energized. Because life is more than a journey. Life is about living. And so I want you to learn these things and to be empowered and encouraged and energized. I'm Michelle Graves. Now here we go.
And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money, and I am your host, Michelle Graves. And as always, it's a distinct honor, pleasure, and privilege to be in your homes for the next hour. And we have a re-invite of a previous guest who talked about a subject, and we ran out of time. And the subject was so powerful and so significant that I had to get him back on the set immediately. And that is Elder Dennis Hatchet, who is a relationship counselor. And we talked about relationships, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Exactly. So it got so intense, and there was so much just information that I found it to be transformative in terms of how a person would look at someone else. And goodness gracious, we do a terrible job in terms of relationships on the job, in our personal life, in our secular life, in churches, synagogues, wherever you fellowship with human beings. It just seems to be always something going on. You can't even bury people without relationship drama in the family. So we want to continue the conversation. This is segment 2 on the power of money, relationships, good, bad, and ugly. Glad to have you back.
Glad to be
You
back.
just stirred up the pot.
Well, I didn't mean to.
Oh, yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did.
I was actually trying to be nice about it.
Aha, well, you don't have to be nice on my behalf, because I expect you to be just real. So where do we want to start today?
Well, we kind of left off with the element of communication.
Yes, we did.
So I wanted to pick back up about communication. And what I wanted to do was throw it out there that communication is to the soul what water is to the body.
Communication to the soul is what water is to the body. So you're going to have to tell my viewers, what is the soul?
Well, you know, the soul is our mind, will, and emotions, and how we feel, what we think, how we process information. It's the seat of life. It's where everything germinates from. It's where all of our thoughts come from. It's where all of our beliefs come from. It's where all of our experiences dwell. They all root themselves in our soul, and it all becomes a part of who we are today. Everything that we've experienced over time, everything that we've learned over time, everything that we were taught, everything we've seen, everything we've heard, it's all locked up in our soul.
That's powerful. Do you think
Yes,
most
it
people
really
are
is.
aware of it?
No. No. Don't even give it a thought on that level.
So they just go through life, going through the motions, not being aware that in many cases, there's a predisposition to certain types of behavior even?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, when we talk about behavior, you have to take in consideration the influences that cause behavior, because you have different events that take place, and there's occurrences that happen inside the event.
Okay.
And how those things shape and mold the feeling factor when you process the information inwardly, how it makes the heart feel. When all of that process takes place, it makes a seed or a seed. And that seed becomes a point of reference. It's just like, example, if let's use the elephant example.
Okay, let's talk about an elephant.
As a baby elephant, they take this big, huge chain and they put it on the baby elephant's neck, and the baby elephant can't go anywhere because he's got this big, huge chain on. But once the elephant becomes full grown, they put a little string around his neck, and he won't move because he still has the mindset of the chain around his neck.
But that's true for people.
It's very true for people, and the illustration is more prevalent with people because the thing is, we feel or experience hurts and pains as a child, and because of that hurt and pain that we experience as a child, it shapes and molds the way we interact with people the rest of our lives.
You know something, it truly is a truth when the Bible talks about training up a child as opposed to training up a child the way that they should go, and that they will never depart from it.
This is true.
That is such a finality.
It's actually awesome, but the thing that's missing in most cases is the fact that it's three-dimensional.
Okay.
And we don't look at all three dimensions because...
Well, can you expound on that?
Okay, well, I'll say it this way.
Okay.
Whatever you say sends a message.
Okay.
Whatever you don't say still sends a message. Whatever you do sends a message. And those things you don't do send a message. So if you're not taking a responsibility and account for all the messages you're sending non-verbally, your words are sending one message, but your behavior and your actions are sending another. And if they don't coincide and mesh together and flow together, you're creating dysfunctional children because they're going to emulate everything that they see.
So
and they're going to spew the words that came along with the actions that they saw. So if your actions and your words aren't going together, and then you wonder why this child is acting like somebody out of the dark ages, it's because your behavior sent one message and they're emulating your behavior, but yet speaking your words.
So when parents are raising their children, they have to be aware of imprinting.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely. 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 And you have to also be aware of where the imprinting comes from. Because you know you got socialistic influences, the externals. Okay. You have your internal influences, which are the family dynamics and the things that you learn there. And then you have those things that are taught in church. So those are your three dimensions. Okay. And if we don't have synchronicity within the dimensions, then you have what they call bipolar disorders and schizophrenic and all these other things they've labeled it to be. And it's nothing more than a fact that things have not been synchronized in the soul.
Oh, exactly. In the soul.
And the soul is going, nah.
Right.
Exactly.
So when we look at young people today, and I say this because it's these are very, very bizarre times, including the murders in Florida and schools and all of these things that are being exercised by young people. And it had to come from someplace.
Well, in a lot of instances, it comes from the void that they have because of the lack of communication. Because the thing, well, I'll say it this way. Dr. Howard, our friend, has said that the body likes to do 7 things, and the most important is waste elimination. Well, let's say we take in this information. And we take in this information. And we take in this information. And we take in this information, but nothing ever comes out. When you start storing up information, it's the same as if you went and ate 3 meals and never went to the bathroom. There's going to be a problem. And unfortunately, the problem doesn't show itself until one gets grown or somewhere close to it. So we have these kids that are growing up and they're taking in all this information, but the parents aren't there to actually interact and communicate and talk with the children, so the children don't have an opportunity to express all that they've gotten in. And when dad gets home from work, we're told to be quiet
Because he's tired.
Exactly. So communication has been set to the side and it's been replaced with technology, which is only throwing in a whole nother whirlwind of information that they have not the capabilities of processing appropriately. So now you have all this information, nowhere for it to go, and then they get frustrated, so then they start acting out. And when they start acting out, that's when you start getting all this the shootings.
Yes.
And they're all doing the same thing. They're all starved for attention.
Can I say even more profoundly, they're probably starved for love?
Yes, that's the biggest element.
Yeah.
That's the biggest
Unconditional, non-judgmental love.
And you know, it's monumental, because the thing that we talk about when we talk about communication, communication is nothing more than a form of love. Because we talk about the love languages, and I always like to say it this way, as opposed to them being love languages, because love languages kind of divides them off and separates them and gives them a nature and a spirit of their own.
Right.
I would like to say that they're languages of love. And the thing is, when I speak to us being multilingual in speaking our languages, we should learn all the love languages so that we can now come in and master the one that's most favorable to us.
Okay.
But exercise the other 6 until we incorporate them all. And now we're fully functional.
Can you go into a little bit more depth about these love languages?
Well, you know, we have the acts of service.
Okay.
Others like to gratification of the ears. They like to hear the words of affirmation. The sad part about these love languages,
Yes.
and I'll use this as an example. I had a couple come in for counseling, and her complaint was, well, he doesn't ever tell me he loves me.
Okay.
And I said, so, okay, well, give me a day in the life of you two. And so she says, well, he gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And he fixes breakfast.
Okay.
Then at 6:30.
For the both of them or just for himself?
Wait a minute.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry.
He fixes breakfast at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
At 6:30, he brings her breakfast in bed.
Oh my goodness.
After he's brought her breakfast in bed, he goes back downstairs and cleans up the kitchen.
While she's still in bed?
While she's still in bed eating breakfast.
Ooh-wee.
When he comes up,
where is this man?
When he comes up and gets her tray, he gets her tray, goes back down, finishes the kitchen, gets ready, and goes to work. At noon, he sends her flowers for lunchtime. And then when he comes home for dinner, he either caters in dinner or either brings something home for dinner.
Are you serious?
But he said, yes, I'm serious. But he never tells her
that he loves her.
Exactly. And I told her, I said, well, let me kind of break this down a different way for you. I said, because now, and I asked her a question, and I asked her a series of questions.
Okay, because I'm fanning myself.
I asked her, I said, now, if he got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, rolled over and kissed you and said, I love you, but didn't get up and fix breakfast, would you be okay with that? If he didn't bring you breakfast in bed at 6:30, and he rolled over again at 6:30 and kissed you and said, I love you, how would you feel then? At 7 o'clock when he's cleaning up the kitchen, because he brought you breakfast in bed, if he rolled over again and kissed you and said, I love you, how would you feel? At the end of the day, when he didn't send you no flowers, but he called you on the phone and told you he loved you, and when he came home in the evening, he didn't bring nothing home, he didn't, and had no food with him for y'all to eat that evening, but he kissed you and said, I loved you, how would you feel?
What did she say?
She said, oh, that wouldn't work. I said, but see, the thing that you don't understand, when he woke up at 6:30 and went down and made breakfast, he said, I love you. When he brought you breakfast in bed, he said, I love you. When he went back downstairs and cleaned up the kitchen, he said, I love you. When he came back upstairs, got your tray and got ready for work, he said, I loved you. When he went to work and sent you flowers at noon, he said, I loved you. When he came home and had food catered in, he said, I loved you. And this is the thing. After all that he did to say, I love you, if he still has to say, I love you, he's not the one with the issue.
May I ask, what is her, since couples tango, what is her follow-up to all of this activity in the world of love?
Well, she stopped and she said, I never thought of it from that perspective. I said, most people don't. And I asked her another question.
Wow.
I said, do you understand, after all that man did to say, I love you, if you hold him accountable to still having to say, I love you, you just insulted everything he did all day long? Because you're saying it means nothing because all I want to do is hear you say, I love you. And he's like, he's going out of his way to do things to show his love for you. But you're stuck on hearing 3 words. And I'm like, if I had a wife that did that for me, she would never have to say anything.
I'm just saying.
She wouldn't have to say anything. She wouldn't even have to say bye when I left.
I'm telling
My feelings
you.
wouldn't be hurt. I wouldn't be bent out of shape. I'd be like, okay. I'd be anticipating what is she gonna do when she comes back home.
Exactly.
And that's why I say we have to become multilingual. When we become multilingual, not only do we have an appreciation for the other love languages and other people's expression of them, we can also give honor to them. And then we don't get caught up in the fact that, well, he doesn't speak my language because my language is a verbal language and I like to hear the words of affirmation versus the acts of service. And when we come to the place where we master our language, but then come to understand all the other languages, whenever there's an expression in any of the other languages, we can still acknowledge that, respect that, and then now reciprocate that. That process right there is communication at its best.
My goodness gracious. And how long does it take for a person to master this?
Well, the mastery of it is something that might take you a lifetime. Because
I would definitely think so.
Well, look at it. Well, one of the things that I add to it, one of the things that usually makes it very difficult for us to exercise that kind of love, which is unconditional.
Right.
That's the true essence of agape love. It incorporates it all. We have to get rid of the sin nature. Well, what is the sin nature? Our selfish, independent nature.
Oh my goodness. You're going to go down that road.
I'm just going to call it the selfish, independent nature.
Sin.
Not the smoking, the drinking, and the cursing, and none of that. None of that. No, not the drugs, the alcohol. Our selfish, independent nature. Because our selfish, independent nature is what locks us into one love language and refuses to acknowledge any of the other 6. In
terms of their validity. We can
terms
acknowledge that they can say them, but it's the validity.
You're not going to give any value to anything that you don't value.
Oh my goodness
when
gracious.
You're in your selfish, independent nature. Because it's all about you. So if it doesn't benefit you, if it doesn't gratify you, if it doesn't come the way you think it should come and sound the way you think it should sound, then it's just not right. And it doesn't matter who the individual is you're dealing with. And they don't know, and I'll say they, I'm gonna say people at home don't know how dishonorable and disrespectful we're being in the silent sector, in our nonverbal communication sector. We don't know how insulting we are in that nonverbal communication sector when we're being selfishly independent.
So the scenario that you gave with one of your clients, what was her husband's perspective?
he had the mindset when I explained to her that her not acknowledging his acts of service as I'm saying I love you
Yes.
was insulting to all of his acts of service. And that's exactly what he said. He said he was hurt.
Oh my goodness.
He said every time he had to tell her that he loved her, he was hurt. Why? Because all this that he was doing to show he loved her, and I still have to say something. I'm showing you all day long
that I love you.
and it's insulting his whole chemistry, his whole nature, his spirit. Everything in him was hurt, and he sat there silent, didn't say a whole lot because he was hurt
And probably
and frustrated.
Frustrated.
Oh, he was frustrated to the fifth power. That's why he was silent, because he didn't want to
Go
go
off.
off. Exactly.
Yeah.
And all of this comes from our breakdowns in communication and the fact that we want to be selfish in how we communicate, as opposed to being open-minded to understand that everybody on this earth is different from you.
You know what? That is probably one of the wisest things you just said. Everyone on this planet Earth is different from you.
Absolutely.
And the presumption that they see a thing the way you do.
Never gonna happen.
Never going to happen.
Never. And when we go in with the mindset that we're creating a relationship or we're creating a marriage based on that demographic, it's nothing more than a recipe for destruction. And it's only a matter of time before it manifests.
And it will manifest.
That's why the divorce rate is so high.
It's so high.
Absolutely.
And staggeringly so among Christians.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Those of us who profess to have the truth and to love God unconditionally cannot seem to communicate with each other.
Well, that's only because they haven't come to the place of mastering that unconditional love. And the thing is, the thing that we don't understand as people, we talk about unconditional love. You can't share anything with anybody else that you don't already possess for yourself.
Woo-wee.
So if you don't possess it, it's just like, okay, if I don't have $5, I can't share $5 with you.
Okay.
So if I don't have an honor and a respect for myself, I can't show you an honor and a respect. And if I do, it's superficial. I'm just doing what you said it should look like, going through the motions. It's nothing that's going to be coming from the heart.
Coming from the heart.
And if it's not coming from the heart, then where's it coming from, and what's the purpose? Because the thing is, we have to look at the simplicity that action without purpose can be classified as manipulation. Because action without purpose is usually connected to an agenda or your preconceived notion of what you want, what you desire. It goes back to the independent, selfish nature.
Is this learned perhaps when we look at male-female relationships and how girls have been trained by their mothers and by the women around them, older women, to have certain expectations or not have any expectations?
Well, you know what? I go back in time, Michelle, and the shaping started with the TV shows that we watched as children. Because they gave the concept of what the wholesome family was supposed to look like and how it was supposed to operate. And there was very little communication exercised in the TV presentation. All of it was exercised as talking at each other. I talk at you, and I say this to you, because they always had the strife. There was always a strife where they didn't understand, he didn't understand, she didn't understand, and we're doing what we do, and nobody's understanding anybody. And the Bible says, with all you're getting, get understanding.
Get understanding.
But if we don't establish an understanding mind, if we don't establish an understanding heart, if we don't understand that we need to understand, then our need to be understood is a void, because both of us are needing to be understood, but nobody's receiving understanding. So if everybody's giving
right
that wants to be understood, then who's supposed to understand it? Who's the one understanding it?
Well, again, lacking a structured environment in terms of husband-wife relationships and the overriding impact and influence of television, Donna Reed, and just people. You never ever got a chance to engage in what constitutes a balanced, sound relationship. I'm so serious. The hierarchies were real. The hierarchies were real. Children had a place, the wife had a place, the husband had a place, and there was no reality TV going on back then.
Excuse me. The sad part is, even if they had reality TV, what is their reality?
This is what I don't know.
Because this is the thing. We talk about how the world has shaped the systems in the world.
Okay.
But then we talk about the kingdom systems of the world. Until kingdom is exposed, expressed, and understood, we'll continue to be victims of this world system. And the thing is that the process of kingdom is a process that first and foremost brings you to the place where you have to get an understanding. Because all the rules in the kingdom were all written long before you got here.
Yes,
So
they were.
None of them are measured on how you feel. None of them are based on what you think. And they really don't concern themselves about what you think about it.
Right, right.
And so the principles are true and sound, and what they have in the kingdom is common wealth. So with the thought of commonwealth, there's a common value,
Right,
appreciation.
right.
And if we have a common value and appreciation, then there's no, you have a place, you have a place, you have a place. No, we all have responsibilities.
I like that term. We all have responsibilities.
And when we learn how to handle our responsibilities and synchronize the conglomeration of children, mom, dad, grandparents, when everybody is doing their part and handling their responsibilities, the machine moves forward flawlessly.
I may have shared this with you. I had the opportunity to read an article in the New York Times that talked about parental estrangement, family estrangement. And it wasn't so much the content of the article, which is we know that children have been very badly abused in so many family environments by parents who had been badly abused, and on and on and on.
Right.
But the context was that got me caught up was the response of thousands of people, because the New York Times opened up their newspaper to people responding and giving input. And I was absolutely floored, although I'm less and less so, at what parents have done to their children. And how it's an easy thing to say, forgive them. Just let it go. You know, we hear, oh, let it go, get over it, let it go. I read accounts that had me in tears of what parents had done to their children. And of course, we're now looking at the parents that had 13 children out in California, kept them imprisoned, adults, and the kids are going to be messed up.
Absolutely.
For the rest of their lives, and the parents still maintain their innocence. How does one work through that with people that are watching who have had horrible, horrible childhoods?
Well, you know, that brings into play one of the other elements that fight communication. And one of the elements that makes communication very difficult is one's own personal unresolved issues. Because until we resolve our own issues,
Okay.
we're only handing our issues down to the children.
So when you say resolving your own personal issues,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean?
Well, you talk about being abused as a child, and I have to use myself as the example because
Okay.
I can't speak for nobody else. But the abuse that I had to endure as a child, and then coming to an adult, and coming to that place where you're brought to that stage where it says, well, if you just forgive. And I'm like, you don't understand what he did to me. But you need to forgive. And I said, you don't know how it made me feel. But you have to forgive. You don't know how angry it made me. So now those are three issues
Okay.
that have to be healed. The anger has to be healed. The hurt that they endured, the pain that they endured has to be healed. And then the process of the application of it has to be healed. The actual event of what they did. Because you can go through life and you can be 50, 60 years old and you can remember what daddy did to you when you were 6 years old. You can remember
You're
that.
correct. Children have incredible recall.
Absolutely. And
I mean, like right there.
but see, no one ever understood that that thing that happened to the child was traumatic for the child. Because for the parent, it was normal because that's what he came from.
Okay. All right.
So he saw, knew, or had no clue that anything was wrong. Because he's only reenacting the behavior that was
That he
acted
expounded.
before him.
Okay.
So the thing is, it has to take someone within the family dynamic to say, you know what, enough is enough. And when somebody says enough is enough, ooh boy, you turn and you go against the grain of
Okay.
everything that was taught in the family. And that's where the kingdom element comes in. Because had it not been for the insurgence of the kingdom element, I don't know if I'd have made it through that myself. But coming to understand the kingdom element, coming to understand how God loves, and then understanding that the Bible says that as he is, so are we on this earth. So the thing that brings it to a halt is the fact that when you look at how you're loving or how you're interacting and how you call yourself having relationship, if it doesn't match the demographics and description of God's,
Love.
then how can you classify yours as love? And the only reason it's classified as love is because we had nothing else to reference it to. We had nothing else to reference it from. Because the thing is, when I went back and had to actually address my dad and forgive my dad, I had to come to the realization that he just simply did not know any better. And once
I believe that.
it's true.
They just didn't know.
They did not know. They were never taught. True love was never shared with them. So this is where I go back to the original stage where I said, how can you share with someone else something that you don't have for yourself? How can you share it with somebody else and you don't have it for yourself? So if no one's ever really loved them, then how are they capable of really loving you? If they've had no visual exposure, no one educated them, no one redirected them from where they were in their place of hurt, and they thinking that this place of hurt is normal, this is the way it is, so they see nothing wrong with how they abused and traumatized this child, because that's what happened to them. So until somebody comes to the table and recognizes that the things that have transpired in our lives don't line up with this book.
Period.
So now when do one of us say, you know what, I'm gonna learn how to do this thing by the book?
Right.
And then when you start the transformation process and the mind renewal process, when you start that process, it brings you to the place where you first have to face your selfish, independent nature. Because that's what this world has created. This world has created the mindset of independency. 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 You don't need, you can, you are. So now everybody is about me, my, and I. And their whole world revolves around it. But until we face it, it's not going to change. Until we face it and then deal with it, it's not going to change. So then the answer to that question, how long does it take us to actually learn how to love unconditional?
Right.
Ooh,
Lifetime.
I'll say it this way, I'm 60, and I'm still learning
Right.
the truest essence of the greater dimensions of love. Because the reality of the matter is, there's so many things that happen in life. And
Yes.
Yes. So now how do you respect, honor, and appreciate someone else's presentation when you don't respect, honor, and appreciate your own? So there's a process of finding oneself in the midst of the whole love concept, because you have to learn to love yourself. You have to learn to honor yourself. You have to learn to respect yourself. And respecting yourself will automatically create respect for others.
Just because.
Just because. Because the thing is, you're going to always want to give something greater than you already have. You're going to we always try to put our best foot forward.
Exactly.
So if we're putting our best foot forward and we feel good about ourselves to the point where now we don't even concern ourselves about ourselves, because we're at peace and contentment with ourselves, because we've come to the place of connecting with the true essence of God's love. And in the true essence of God's love, there's supply. So I don't have a big list of needs. I don't have this big list of things that I have to have. Why? Because everything that I have to have, I already have within me, in Him.
But you know what? And this brings an interesting thought that I've been pondering more and more on as I've grown older and seen more and more families that are cast aside and are not connected. And the fact of the matter is that the family is a vital and important unit of the kingdom.
Absolutely.
And that's where everything gets worked out.
Absolutely.
Good, bad, or ugly, everything gets worked out behind those closed doors.
It's supposed to.
It's supposed to. And as a result of it not being done, because we live in a world now where technology has preempted the whole emotional love experience. It's about texting and social media and Instagram and selfies and all these things that have nothing to do with the heart.
Nothing at all. Nothing
And
at
so
all.
I have to conclude that there are more people out here today in personal anguish and experiencing pain that they don't even know a proper way to respond.
They don't.
So how do you address it?
Well, that brings up another one of those good points and one of those other roadblocks to communication.
Okay.
And one of those roadblocks, another one of those roadblocks is trust. Because now when we talk about communication, communication is an exchange of ideas, perspectives, and thoughts and beliefs. So how do we exchange the thoughts when I don't trust you? Because if I'm going to give you something from my heart and you don't have any value for it, then I give it to you and you devalue it. So then I don't give it to you, so then we don't communicate. So then we have the missing elements of trust.
Okay.
Because there's no true essence of confidentiality, where the fact that the things that happen in his house stay in his house, that went out the window so long ago.
It's so true.
And the thing is, until we reestablish the confidentiality clause, until we reestablish it through persistent and consistent behavior and exposure and expression, individuals are not going to learn to trust again, because everybody's on the defensive against everybody else.
And for what reason?
Because they don't want to be hurt anymore.
Okay,
They're
so
trying
the
to
whole
protect
issue
themselves.
of trust revolves around the pain of association. Even if it's not specific to you, it is specific to things that have occurred systematically over their life that have left them empty and lacking in trust.
Well,
is that what's happening here?
That's part of it, but it's greater than that, because what happens is when you experience this pain,
Okay.
you experience this pain in an event at the hands of someone else.
Okay.
And the thing that we do, not having counsel, not being able to communicate, not having anybody to talk to, we internalize it all and we lock down and say, I'm not going to ever let this happen to me again. So then we stop being vulnerable.
Okay,
And you
but you
can't-
are vulnerable by the very act of saying I won't.
That's not understood either.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that's why it's such a destructive deception, because that's all it is a deception. But the thing that's really not understood, you may grow to be successful to keeping those people out that's going to cause you pain,
Okay.
but you also at the same time keep those people out that are going to bring you love.
Woo-wee.
So the thing is, now you've just made your circumstance worse, because now you're on an island. Now you feel alone. Now you don't feel adequate. So now you're starting to chip away at your own self-esteem, which means now
But
I
you
love
are
you.
now the perpetrator, correct?
Exactly.
No one else is doing it to you. You're doing it to yourself.
Absolutely.
Whoa.
And now that you love you less, you're less capable of loving someone else.
Oh, man. And a vicious cycle just
It
continues.
just keeps on rolling. It just keeps on
You've
rolling.
given me clarity, because a very dear friend of mine who's had trust issues, I poured out to her in a difficult season. And I've never heard from her since. I'm serious.
I believe it.
No text, no email, no phone, no.
I believe it.
Done.
Absolutely.
And I said, what happened?
The truth.
The truth is,
The truth is that thing that most people can't deal with, because it's on the other side of your hurt, it's on the other side of your pain, it's on the other side of your experiences, it's on the other side of what you think. The truth, because this is the thing. We can do something
yes.
for a distinctive purpose. But the reality of the matter is, in this life, in this society, as it goes right now, people are not operating out of purpose. Miles Monroe said it very well. Until the purpose of a thing is understood, abuse is inevitable. We're living in a society where everybody is being abused, everything is abusive, everybody's being taken advantage of, everybody's being manipulated, everybody's being taken advantage of. So how do you trust in the midst of that kind of whirlwind where it's silently, consistently telling you, I can't afford to trust?
So what is the sum total of this?
Well,
I mean, seriously.
If you evaluate it from the world's perspective, it's getting ready to destroy itself.
It cannot do anything but that.
Exactly, and that's why we need to come into alignment with the scripture that says, come out from them and be ye separate.
Okay.
And when we come out from them to be ye separate, now we're going to come and be transformed by the renewing of our minds, so that we can learn how to live under the oracles of Christ. Let's live under the principles and the purpose of Christ. We live under the purpose and the principles of Christ, then the promise says all these things should be added unto you.
Exactly.
And when we make up our minds, and that's another big element.
Yes, make up your mind.
Yeah, because until you make up your mind, you'll continue
Make
to
up
make
your
up
mind.
excuses.
Let me stop. Viewers, did you hear that? Make up your mind, okay? You know you're spinning top. Many of you are. I mean, you just know this. You know you're spinning top, and it has to stop. But I can't make you stop it. Only you can make up your mind and say, time out. I'm done. And begin to reorient your thinking in a positive and constructive and purpose-driven way. That's the only way it's going to work. I'm just telling you, I've never seen anything going on like I'm looking at today. I don't even want to get onto the subject of mental illness.
Oh,
I can't.
you know what? Dr.
What?
Howard said something significant about diabetes, and he said that it's not a disease.
Right.
It's a life issue.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to talk about mental illness. Mental illness is not an illness. It's a life issue. Just like diabetes is not a disease, mental illness is a label that man gave it because they don't understand it.
So what is it?
It's nothing more than another imbalance. You have imbalances in your physical nature, your dietary practices.
Yes.
You have imbalances.
Uh-huh.
Then you have imbalances in your mental capacities to process information. And when you've not been given those elements to balance your process of information, you have an imbalance.
So what are the elements?
The elements of imbalance?
I mean, if you've not, how do you not become cuckoo? I'm so serious.
Well,
There's behaviors out here that I don't even have titles for
and
with
you know
people.
what? This is actually what the church is supposed to be doing. But
Okay.
this is,
Okay.
but I am pleased to say that this is what Embrace Kingdom Life does.
Okay.
We sit down and we deal with the real issues, the real problems, and we bring real answers for real people. And the thing is, until you recognize your problem is a problem, is it a problem?
Well, that's a very good thought.
And most people don't even recognize the fact that they have a problem.
Or that they're creating problems for other people.
Don't even have a clue.
No clue.
And the thing is,
I mean, you cannot tell me with a straight face that these kinds of behaviors are normative.
Well, pretty much. Because this is the thing. You have people that are mindful of the behavior,
Yes.
but their only concern is about themselves.
Oh,
So that selfish, independent nature. So until an individual comes to the place to stop himself, to say to himself, you know what, I may think I got it all, because this is the thing.
Oh my gosh.
We go through these systems of being taught, and we learn these things, and we've learned these things, and they worked very well when we used it, and we learned it 20 years ago. So then we fast forward the clock 20 years, and we still want to bring this thing that we did 20 years ago into the functionality of today, and it doesn't work.
No,
because
no.
it's like
No.
you know, you go back in the Boy Scouts.
Yes.
Where you got the stick and you.
Yeah.
Because you know you're gonna get smoke and you make a fire, and then you got a lighter. So it's like.
Right.
Exactly. So then when you come into this environment, there's a room full of lighters, and you come in and get 2 sticks and start doing like this, and everybody's looking at you like, well, what are you doing? I'm getting ready to make a fire. I'm getting ready to light the candles, and they're like, really?
Really?
But the thing is, that's all you know, because that's what you were taught.
That's all you know.
And you mastered it.
Yes.
And the fact is, when you bring your mastery, outdated mastery, when you bring your outdated mastery into this next dimension, these kids are looking at you like, what is wrong with this guy?
Yes.
And that's another one of those issues of communication.
Yes,
it's
it
another one of the
is.
breakdowns, because the thing is, when do we come to the place to say our mastery is no less mastery if I still have to add something to it? Just because it's challenged in where it is doesn't make it indeficient from where it is, because it still is very significant for what it stands for. But if it's being administered, the practical application, if it's being administered a different way in this time, what's so difficult about us coming out of what we were taught and what we were learned and coming over here and just learning how to deliver it a different way?
Well, I will tell you, in my particular case, that was a challenge.
Oh, it's a challenge to everybody.
No, it is, because if you're going to communicate with young people today, your flavor better be different.
Much. Exactly.
And cut the crap. Cut the layers. Cut the crap.
It has to be real.
It better be real, or else they'll flip you a dime and keep moving.
Absolutely. And
I mean,
in most cases, they won't even flip you a dime.
You're right.
They'll just turn and keep it moving.
They'll just turn and keep it moving. And if we desire to reach out and to have authentic communication with our children, our grandchildren, it's got to be deeper than, well, this is the way we used to do it, because the reality is that they don't have a context.
None whatsoever.
They have no context.
And the thing that's even more important than that, when they don't have a context, you can bring them a bucket with all the answers in it. And all it is information.
Right.
And so if you can't disseminate the information, what good is it?
I totally agree.
So the thing is, when we, being masters in that thing that we were taught, come into this new element, we have to ask, seek, and knock to find the new elements that are making us more conducively acceptable in this season versus what was acceptable in the seasons past. Because the thing that's significant is the Bible says that God is doing a new thing. Because the thing is, until we come and connect with the flow of the Spirit and the new thing, we're going to still be working in this obsolete circle, thinking we're going somewhere, thinking we're doing something, but we're in a hamster wheel going around in circles going nowhere. And we still continue to lose a generation of kids.
I declare that we will not lose this generation.
Absolutely.
I declare that they're an amazing and remarkable generation.
They are.
With a vision that is just so powerful.
It is.
And they will not be deterred. They will not go back.
But you know the essence of it?
What?
They've already connected with the power.
Woo!
We just have to come to the mindset to redirect it in the right place. But we have to be walking in the authority to redirect the power.
And not only do we have to walk in the authority, but it cannot be a titular authority. It has to be real authority, meaning you say what you mean, you do what you do. And they don't have to challenge themselves about your authenticity in their truth.
No.
It's very important. But you know what? We've run out of time.
Again.
I'm not having you back on. This is too annoying. I appreciate what you shared. I support what you're doing. And may the peace of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit continue to rest with you.
Thank you.
And to guide you in the days ahead.
Bless
and for
you.
those of you that have tuned in to this part 2 of relationships and communication, good, bad, ugly, I hope you've learned a little bit to help you in terms of how you get along and get around with people. We're in a fast-moving jet right now, for real. And the fact that you feel uncomfortable does not change the fact that it is a fast-moving jet. Hope you can hang in and hang on. Look forward to having you on my next segment. I'm Michelle Graves. Thank you for being a part of this show and this discussion with Elder Dennis Hatchet on, again, communication and relationships, the good, bad, and ugly. I'll see you next time. You take care and God bless you. Bye-bye.